Hey everybody, and welcome back to the channel, and today we are talking about the very unfortunate news that we got yesterday, and that is that the Guard have been removed from their VCT Ascension spot, which they won in the Sao Paulo Ascension tournament. Now this immediately confused and just bewildered everybody in the Valorant community, because how could something like this happen, and what the hell, like, these players on the Guard worked so hard throughout the entire year just to have their spot revoked. And the reason that Riot gave is that the Guard missed the deadline for the team participation agreement, thus disqualifying the team. Now obviously we don't know all the inner workings of these companies, Riot and the Guard themselves, but we know that Riot does have a high standard and a certain amount of deliverables when it comes to becoming a partner team. That all went down last year when creating this year's version of the VCT, which was the first year of the franchise league, and they had the Ascension League, or the Tier 2 League, Challengers League, I guess is what it's called, and that allowed for one team from each region to be able to make it through Tier 2 and get to Tier 1, so that they can kind of have a relegation system, even though it's not a total relegation system because Tier 1 teams can't drop down. But regardless, even if you make it through Ascension and you get that VCT spot, you still have to give Riot these deliverables and also adhere to their demands. And apparently this was the team participation agreement that the Guard did not submit. And according to Riot, they followed up plenty of times, but it just months went on and they heard nothing from the Guard. And the Guard is going through a very tumultuous time in their organization's history. They may not exist very soon. They let go almost the entirety of their staff way back at the beginning of this year, right before the VCT Challengers League even got started. So they still kept their players and stuff, but their staff was majorly cut, and they haven't really recovered, and they haven't, I guess, made any more money since. So even though that this is an org that should have a decent amount of money because they're backed by a billionaire, they don't have it apparently, and that billionaire can't give up any of his money to save it because why try? You're a billionaire. You don't need to do anything. Joking, obviously, billionaires suck, and unfortunately the Guard has really suffered due to just this org not being well run at all. And Riot did say in their statement to the public that no team will replace them, and the Americas League will have 10 teams instead of 11, which it would have had if Guard had joined. So Pacific will have 11, EMEA will have 11, and Americas will have 10. So we're going to have 32 teams total in the VCT, but Americas is not going to have that Ascension team, which is a huge bummer. The Challengers League in America this year was a really good league, and it was a really fun Valorant to watch with some really great stories, and the Guard was probably the greatest story that came out of it. They were a team that did well in 2022, made it to Masters Reykjavik at the start of the year, and then bowed out really early, and then couldn't make it to another international tournament. And they didn't get into franchising, but then they get into Challengers League and they look really good, and then they win the whole thing in Sao Paulo, finally getting that VCT spot that team deserves, that those players deserve. Those players are very good. They stuck together. A couple of them left to play in franchising, but most of the team stuck together because they had great chemistry, and they knew they could win, that they had the team to do it, and that they could make it all the way through Ascension and be in franchising all together. Unfortunately, now that has all gone to waste, and that is a huge bummer. And not just their season has gone to waste, every other Tier 2 team season has gone to waste. G2, M80, who was the runner-up, and we'll talk about them in a bit. Turtle Troops, Moist Moguls, all those teams that were very close, or at least in the Challengers League against the Guard. All of that has now gone to waste, and that is very unfortunate. But also, unfortunately, I think Riot's decision here to not let any other team in unfortunately might be the fairest option, and that's probably why they're doing it. And I'll explain further before everybody gets mad at me. Let me explain. Now, the Guard did have a statement on their Twitter account. I'm not calling it X. I refuse to call it X. They called this outcome unexpected, and they have released all of their players. So now all these players are free agents and are free to sign wherever they want. Which, I mean, that's good on them for doing that, but the reason why these players stayed on the Guard was because, I mean, I guess they believed in the organization, but more than anything, they believed in their team. They believed in what they could do as a team, and what they've done so far is very impressive. And I, for one, was really looking forward to seeing them in the VCT Americas League, and they probably could have been one of the top teams in that league. I mean, I know it's a really steep competition, especially in comparison to Tier 2. But the guard performed well against Tier 1 teams the year before, so they could at least make a run for it. And unfortunately, we'll now never get to see that, barring a change, but I kind of don't think it's going to happen. And the guard, as I've said, they've been shady since the start of the season. They have let go all of their staff. They're run by a billionaire who clearly doesn't care about the organization. It's losing money. It's a money pit. Every esports org right now is a money pit. There's no money being made in the industry, and it's a really bad time for esports as a whole, which is unfortunate because viewership is definitely, getting better, at least depending on the game. But unfortunately, they clearly didn't care enough about their spot or didn't think that they had the money to sustain that spot, so they just didn't agree to the team participation agreement, and here we are. Now, there has been a lot of community backlash. Most people are saying, Riot, let them sign with a different org. Let them sign with a different Tier 2 org or something else, and let them play in the VCT Americas franchise league because these players really deserve it. Now, there is a reason why Riot isn't allowing them to do that, and part of it is while the free agent teams can win, the guard is different because the players played during the year under the guard banner. Buying slots in the VCT is not how it works, and that is coming straight from the head of Valorant Esports, Leo Faria. Faria? I don't know, one of the two. But he had a whole statement after all the backlash was coming in, and he said a couple different things, and one of them was that while there is a preparation for some team of unsigned players making it through challengers and then winning challengers and then being able to sign with the team after winning challengers and making it through Ascension, there is a preparation for that. But the way that it happened through the guard is different because they were playing for an org. And unfortunately, it's not always about the players. And as much as that hurts and as much as that sucks, ultimately this is a business, and ultimately Riot needs orgs and needs good orgs to be able to come into their league. And Leo did address some of the other options that Riot had, such as promoting the runner-up M80, but he said that they don't want to set a questionable precedent for teams to be able to just, lose and then just be able to jump back in because you were the runner-up. And I understand that. I completely understand why they don't want that to be what happens. He specifically said in his Twitter post, the point of Ascension is to reward performance, and as great and talented as M80 is, qualifying a team that didn't win the tournament defeats the purpose. Promotion is earned in-game, not out of it. And also, if they did go with that, if they just promoted the runner-up, then that's completely unfair to the guard players, who, just because their org dropped them, now they don't get to play, but the team that they beat gets to play in the franchise league, and then M80 will just have that as like their label for that entire season, just be like, oh, you just got in because you got lucky because the guard is a terrible organization that doesn't know how to do business. And that would suck, and that would cause a lot of backlash towards M80 and the league and other orgs, most likely. So I do agree that it does set a questionable precedent, and Riot won't just let anyone in. We saw during the franchising application process so many good organizations or popular organizations with money behind them weren't allowed into this VCT league because Riot didn't feel that they were the right fit. They didn't let Optic in, who had the best team in Valorant at that point, aside from Loud. They were going to let G2 in, and then there was that whole Andrew Tate thing, and then we're like, well, this is a terrible look if we announce them for our franchise league, like literally right after this happened, so they didn't allow them in, and a lot of other popular orgs not making it in. And it's because Riot does have a high standard, and they want to choose their teams correctly. And yes, free agent teams can make it through challengers, but they need to sign with an org after. And it's not just as simple as the players going, oh, I'll sign with these guys. I'll sign with this. Riot has to approve it as well. That org has to show Riot that they are the right fit as well. It's their league. Ultimately, they have the final decision. M80 and other orgs such as G2 would happily take that spot. M80 has even offered to pick up the guard players, put them on their team, I guess drop their whole team, but maybe they've already done that. I'm not too sure about that. But they said that they would be willing to take the guard players and then use them in the VCT and get that slot. But in my opinion, that also sets a dangerous precedent as well. Riot does not want these VCT slots to be bought. This is a partnership league. This is a promotion type league. It's not one where they want teams to buy spots. This is not the Overwatch League. This is not the LCS. They don't want these spots to be bought. They want it to be a partnership program. So even if M80 just scoops up all the guard players and then says, hey, we have that team, we have the players, let us in the franchise league, Riot can still just say no, and so far they have. And say it's a team that wasn't participating in VCT Challengers at all, and then they swoop in and buy the players, then they're essentially just buying their way through Tier 2. And while, that apparently was an option for free agent teams and that might happen in the future, Riot does not want these slots to be bought, so having it basically be, an org has already gone through the whole process and won in the process and then failed to finish that process, they don't want that to be a reason for another team to be able to essentially buy the spot. So I understand why they don't like that option. I understand why they're not doing that. Ultimately, it is a business. Now, I made a comment on Ye's post about this on Twitter, and a lot of people were disagreeing with me. A lot of people did agree with me, but a lot of people were disagreeing with me. And one sentiment that I heard a lot was, it's not about the org, it's about the players. In a perfect world, yes. In a perfect world, yes. But unfortunately, it is about the orgs. This is a big franchise league. This is esports trying to imitate real sports, real big regular sports, whatever you want to call them. They are emulating that, and they are trying to have it so, we have a regular season, we have these big events, we have this big spectacle, and you need these orgs behind it and these orgs helping that out. So just having free agent teams in your big partnership league, they don't want that because they want an org behind it, because there is certain, you have to be able to run the team. You have to be able to give them a facility to play in, a salary, all this stuff that is dependent on the orgs. And most free agent teams that were going through challengers got picked up anyway, like throughout the season. Moist Moguls is an example of that, disguised as well. Turtle Truce was almost picked up by XQC, but that fell through. It's not just any team that is just allowed to just pick up these players. It's not as simple as just letting the runner-up team buy the players from the first place team and then having them in. It's not that simple, and it's not totally fair either. This is what I said on Ye's post. I agree it sucks, but what is Riot supposed to do? No option is fair. An org picks up the players, unfair to the other tier 2 orgs, because that org didn't have to go through Ascension. Let M80 in, because runner-up, unfair to the guard players. No one, everyone loses. So unfortunately, just letting no one in is the lesser of two evils, at least in Riot's perspective. In my perspective, I think it'd be ultimately fine if they just let these players find a way to play in the league somehow. But I also understand that that's just not how it works, nor would I expect it to be how it works. Riot cares what org represents these players, because that org ultimately represents their league. And while some people may not see it that way, that's how it works. And that's how it works in the business world. Optics are everything. And the VCT needs good publicity and good orgs in it, and that was something that Leo highlighted as well. He said we want really good orgs that are dedicated. So having an org that is just completely willing to just drop the ball like the Guard did, that's obviously not going to fly, and this is definitely setting a standard for Ascension teams in the future. And there is still hope that these players find a home in the franchise league. Maybe these players get picked up by a variety of different teams. It is unlikely that this roster stays together. I just don't think Riot's going to change their mind on this. It unfortunately is the lesser of, three evils to just have no one win. And that sucks, because now the entire VCT Challengers America League season was just entirely wasted. Ludwig talking about it in his video. He, of course, started the Mogul Males Valorant team, and they were very good. They were very good during the Challengers League. The Guard beat them, actually. It is unfortunate, and, I do think it sucks for those orgs, but also I don't really care too much about, the other orgs that are affected by this. I more care about the players. There are 5 incredible Valorant players that made it through this incredible gauntlet, and they won it all, and they got to a spot that they deserved to be in. Now it's all gone, because the org that they chose, the org that they were in, just could not live up to some probably pretty easy standards as well, and that's just how it goes. I really hope that these players find a home. There is a petition for asking Riot to allow another org to pick them up and let them play in the franchise league. I signed it. I'll put it in the description as well, so you can sign it as well. And, you know, despite everything that I've said, that may be like pro Riot or whatever you want to say, I do think that the fairest thing possible would be to find a way for these players to play, whether it be in another org or something like that. But I also understand it's just not that simple. It's just not that simple from a business perspective, and I don't think Riot's going to budge on this, but we'll see. They've budged due to community backlash before, so maybe it will happen, but I'm a little bit doubtful, pretty doubtful actually, so we'll see. And again, I am not trying to just defend Riot here. Ultimately, I do think that this is the Guard's fault. They put their players in a terrible position. They put Riot in a terrible position. And now they're just, you know, both them and Riot are just getting all the hate online because Riot had to make a tough decision based off of the incompetence of the organization. So that is really unfortunate, so I really hope the Guard players find some home in franchising because they deserve to be there. Anyways, thank you all very much for watching. Please click the like and subscribe. Let me know what you think of this situation down below in the comments. Thank you all for watching. See you in the next one. Bye.